Our guest speaker of today is Dr. P. Redmin Das Manchal, MDS. He is a specialist in oral medicine and radiology. He is a director at Diagnox, only exclusive oral medicine and radiology center in Tamil Nadu. He is also working as associate professor in Sri Mookambika Institute of Dental Science, Kulasekaram. He is the author of various international and national publications. He has lectured in national and state level academic platforms. And today his topic is Beyond the Teeth. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Melvin. Thank you for the introduction. So without any delay, let's move on to the topic. So I've chosen the topic as Beyond the Teeth. And towards the end of my presentation, I hope you will all realize why my topic is Beyond the Teeth. And this is from my point of perspective. So this is the scenario which was prevailing before the COVID lockdown. Okay, most of us, almost all the dentists were extracting the teeth, happily restoring the teeth, taking impressions and moving all around the patients in all difficult positions. So if you notice very carefully, whatever we are doing, whatever work we are doing, we are always training our back as well as our neck. So that's why backache and neck pain became the most common occupational hazard for the dentist. Almost everyone will be having this back pain or neck pain during our routine practice. So let's see whether the COVID-19 lockdown has helped us to recover out of this. So this is the scenario during the COVID-19 lockdown. That means during this 2.5 months lockdown, when we are sitting in home without going to our clinics, again, we still try to hurt our back as well as the neck, mainly because of all the webinars like one which I am hosting now. So the scenario is like whenever we are sitting or whenever we are working, we are more prone to sit in a very sedentary position instead of in a right position. So that's why we always tend to hurt our spine as well as our neck region. So if you are one of the dentists who are sitting like this and listening to my presentation, my kind advice is take your mobile phone in your hand and have a small walk throughout this presentation so that you can help yourself from not getting any pain from your neck or back. So why we are concentrating more about this is because of the musculoskeletal disorders. So for example, if you develop a musculoskeletal disorder, that means a pain in your back by your improper posture when you're handling a patient or when you're sitting for a webinar for a longer period of time. So eventually you will notice for 6 months or 6 to 7 months, you will have pain in your back, and slowly you will notice your neck started aching. So slowly you will be having your pain from the back radiating towards your neck. And then if you notice, it will be radiating towards your shoulder, and slowly sometimes it will move towards your hip region or towards your leg. So this will be the scenario for all the people who are having muscle pain at one particular point of time. And why this is happening is all the muscles in the body are interconnected. If you're straining the back muscle for a longer period of time, the muscle will become fatigued. So to help that muscle, the adjacent muscle, that is the shoulder muscle or hip muscle, will try to do much more higher job so that it can compensate the back muscles. So when it is doing like that, again the shoulder muscle will start to ache, and again after some time the shoulder muscle will get fatigued, then the neck muscle will start the work. So this continues as a chain reaction, and this will not revert on its own unless until you change your body posture or you find out the source why it is getting interfered, and then you have to rectify that. So this is a scenario for all the joint issues and for all the muscle issues. So I became more concerned about this mainly because when I started seeing the temporomandibular disorder patients. So there is a saying that the musculoskeletal disorders can be ascending or sometimes it can be descending. For example, if your musculoskeletal disorder problem starts from your foot or from your knee, if you're having a leg pain for some time, and after 6 months the leg pain started radiating towards upside, then you have a hip pain, then you started developing a backache, then your shoulder ache, neck ache, then it is called as an ascending type. And for example, if you're having a TMJ problem first, and then it radiates towards your neck, shoulder, back pain, and leg pain, then it is called as descending musculoskeletal disorder. So this is where I came to know more about this musculoskeletal disorders or the posture issues and muscle fatigues. So this is one of the patient which came to me. Actually, she's a very famous dentist, very good practitioner, and she has a severe TMD issues. So when we are talking about the TMD issues, I made her sit and I started asking her history. Then suddenly what I noticed is her abnormal body posture. Okay, so this is how she was sitting it, and I don't want to reveal her face. That's why I made the photo into a more animated one. Okay, so when she was sitting like this in front of me, I asked the doctor, are you sitting comfortably? Then she adjusted herself and again sat in the same posture and said, yes doctor, I am comfortable and I am sitting straight. Then with her permission, I took a picture and then I showed to her. To her shock, she was extremely surprised to see her abnormal body posture. So this is happening mainly because if you see, her head is tilted towards the right side. Okay, and whenever the head is tilting towards one side, for example, basically the weight of the head is approximately 5 kg. So when it is tilting 1 inch towards the left or 1 inch forward, what will happen is, for each and every inch, the weight of the head will increase for about 5 kilogram. So you have to bear additional weight on your shoulders. So here what is happening is, since the head is tilted towards the right side, to compensate all the weight, the body has to be moving on the other side. If you see her left shoulder, it is coming little down, and whereas your head is moving towards the right. So this is, the body is trying to balance the entire musculoskeletal mechanism by moving in an opposite direction. So by this, what will happen is, our entire posture will change and eventually all the muscles will get affected one day or the other. And another point which we are forgetting about is the vitamin D deficiency. Because as a dentist or as a modern society people, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to avoid the sunlight. So whenever we are having a sunlight, especially ladies, they will take an umbrella and they will protect themselves from the sun. And whenever we are traveling outside, we'll travel in an AC car. Our clinics are AC, our college, everywhere we'll be sitting where the sunlight couldn't reach us. So because of that, what is happening is, logically, we also forgot about the importance of the sunlight. And most of the time, our children's also been prevented or stopped by us from moving in the sunlight. So eventually now the entire generation, if you see an article and see, in this generation, most of the people are having vitamin D deficiency. So what you're seeing here is a 9-year-old child. And she came again with the TMJ issues. When we noticed, she is having a enamel hypoplasia in all her dentition. Her teeth has been affected. It looks like kind of an amelogenesis imperfect. All the teeth are being affected, developmental issues, and her skin is completely dry. If you look at her feet, you can understand that the feet is very much dry. It's not oily, and it looks as if it is a feet of a very old or elderly individual. That is mainly because the sun is the one which gives a basic nourishment for the skin, as well as it creates a vitamin D, which is essential for the bone to be strong. So because of this lacking, what happened to this child is, she had a diffuse body ache all over the entire body. She always have pain and she will be dull. She started having a sedentary life. She stopped playing outside, all those things. So this is scenario. What happened is, after realizing this patient, we started examining for all the patients vitamin D who were coming with TMJ issues, and almost all of them lacks vitamin D. The normal level of vitamin D is 30 ng per ml. Okay, and whereas in this patient it was just 14 ng per ml. Whereas in the previous case, I said one doctor, no, I told the previous slide that one doctor had the posture issues. That particular doctor had the vitamin D level is around 4. Okay, so instead of 30, where it is at least minimally 30 we should have, that particular doctor had the level of vitamin D is 4 ng per ml. So because of that, imagine what all symptoms you would have had. And if you're not correcting this vitamin D, and if you're doing any kind of treatment, it will not respond. Okay, the pain will never subside, and because of the lack of vitamin D. So take these two things into a consideration, and always try to improve a posture and take vitamin D into consideration and get sun exposure, especially in the early morning, so that will not be a vitamin D deficient patient. So these things have been highlighted to me, or come to the limelight when I started examining more of a temporomandibular disorder patients. Okay, so these temporomandibular disorder patients actually are very, very common. I would actually say like caries, it is common. Okay, because in every patient, in every office, I think now 30 or 35 participants are there. Almost in 35 participants, like 15 participants will surely have a temporomandibular disorders. Okay, so when do you recur for a treatment, or when do you go for a treatment is whenever your disorder is affecting your lifestyle. If you're having a neck pain, or if you're having a backache, and because of that backache, you're not able to do some particular point of work, or you're not able to perform your clinical practice, or if it is occurring almost every day and it is disturbing you or making you irritant, then it is the time to go for a temporomandibular disorder treatment. Okay, and if it is a clicking, and if it is very initial, and if it doesn't bother you much, or if you feel it is not progressively increasing, then you can just follow up and wait. You don't have to jump into a treatment. So this is what I understood about temporomandibular disorders. And again, when you're doing a clinical practice, if you have 10 to 20 patients per day, at least 5 patients to 8 patients will surely have a temporomandibular disorder. All you have to notice is observe what all the symptoms they have. And basically, we know that if patients are having temporomandibular disorder, we'll be expecting trismus, we'll be expecting jaw pain and inability to open the mouth, or severe pain in the entire mandibular region. Okay, so these are the common symptoms which most of us believe related to the temporomandibular joint. But unfortunately, there are lots of other atypical features which can patient bring up with. For example, two features which we already discussed before, that is the vitamin D deficiency. Because of that, the generalized body pain and skin changes, the roughness of the skin, all those things, as well as the first one which we discussed, the body posture. So these are also an atypical features of temporomandibular disorders. Apart from that, especially in this case, you see what all the patient symptoms are. So this is a 57-year-old female lady who's been referred to diagnose for a TMJ disorder complaint. So this patient had a main complaint of restricted mouth opening since 6 months. And she was working in Mali for 6 months in one school area there. And what happened is, from her, we understood that her work is very hectic. So she was always going around the children, and she didn't bother, or she didn't mind her symptoms much. So she said like she is not able to open her mouth, and she is living with this restricted mouth opening for past 6 months. And because of that, she is now not able to have adequate food also. So what she did is she bared for almost 6 months to 1 year. Then she lost her job. She quit her job and then come back to her own place, Kanyakumari district, to undergo any treatment related to this. So when she came to us, when we examined her, and this is the scenario, she has an extremely severe deep bite, and she has a very severe restricted mouth opening. As you can see, the mouth opening is just around 10 millimeter. That means hardly it is 1 centimeter mouth opening. And this is our maximum. No matter you ask her to open her extremely and give some pressure and try to separate both the jaws, this will not increase. This is still 10 millimeter. Okay. Then we sat and asked about the history for this patient, how it started and what all you experienced. Did you had any trauma like that? She doesn't have any history of trauma, or she doesn't have any other dental treatment previously. Okay, and not orthodontic procedure, something like that. Then what she, when we are asking repeated history, she told out that headache is the first symptom which she has encountered. So headache is being present for this patient for around 4 or 5 years, but she left it untreated. She thought it is because of the work stress, so she didn't give much importance for the headache. Then slowly she started developing a neck pain. Then slowly she started developing a severe ear pain and tinnitus. That means whenever the pain starts from the head, again she started radiating the pain towards the ear region also. After that, only slowly she started developing this restricted mouth opening, difficulty in chewing, and now she ended up like this. So now if you notice very clearly, I told about, and because of all this, she has inability to sleep also. So she had a very poor sleep for the past 6 months. So if you notice very clearly, out of these symptoms, two symptoms looks not very related to the dentist, right? One is the ear pain and tinnitus, I said, which has been present for many years. And the other one is inability to sleep. So the sleep, headache, and ear pain doesn't look more related to a dentist. Most of the dentists doesn't deal with that, or most of the dentists would have not heard from the patient, or they would have not treated that. Okay, but trust me, like apart from what you think are the TMJ issues, there are lots of other TMJ issues which, as a dentist, we can really treat and help the patients. So let's see what we did for this patient. So what we did is we took a radiograph for this patient first and screened the patient radiographically. So you can see there is some anatomical changes. There is remodeling on both the condylar head bilaterally. There is some flattening was present. There is no obvious erosion, not very severe osteoporosis or rheumatoid arthritis couldn't be seen. And you can see multiple tooth extraction has been done. There are lots of teeth are missing. So that's why whenever patient is clenching, her lower teeth is going and impinging to the palatal region. Okay, so that's why she's having a very severe deep bite. So in our terms, we call it as an orthopedic instability. That means her joint is not stable because her occlusion is not perfect. She doesn't have occlusion at all. So because of that, the joint is started rocking on both the sides. So eventually she would have developed a temporomandibular disorder. So what we did is we palpated the patient, we took a long history and we recorded everything, and we then put on the patient for an ultra low frequency tensing. So this is the equipment which we use for ultra low frequency tensing. So what we do is we connect, as you can see in the third picture, we connect this tensing electrode on the TMJ region. Bilaterally, we will be connecting it on the TMJ region, as well as we will be connecting it on the spinal accessory, that is our next adjacent to our sternocleidomastoid region. So when we are connecting to that, what we are getting there is we are approaching the trigeminal nerve, and we are approaching the spinal accessory nerves. Okay, so these are the nerves which supplies all the muscles of mastications. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, the patient's mouth is twitching like this, the jaw is twitching, and the shoulder is also lifting like this. So why it is happening is that is mainly because through this ultra low frequency tense, we are giving some amount of electrical impulses which runs through the nerve, and it supplies all the muscles which it has been innervated. So when it is happening like that, what will happen is all the muscles of mastication will be contracting and relaxing on its own. So this will happen for 45 minutes to 1 hour. So when it is happening like that, all the muscles will be relaxed, which has not been relaxed for past 6 months to 1 year. So now after this tensing for a couple of days, that means not one time, like today we will be doing it, and again the next day we can recall the patient and again we'll do it. So continuously when 2 days we are doing it, the tensing for this patient, what will happen is temporarily all the muscles will be relaxed. Okay, and as you can see in the third picture, if you see, the mouth opening is doubled from 10 millimeter, now it has been improved to 20 millimeter without any medication. Okay, so now we can we have improved the mouth opening so that we can access to the oral cavity. We can take an impression or we can take a bite. So what we did is, after tensing, what happened is the jaw would have come to a normal physiological position. It would have not got trismus and it would have not tilted towards one side like this. Okay, now it is in a normal position, physiological position. That time we took a measurement. We found out how much vertical dimension is lost for this patient, and we calculated that. Then we took a bite and we gave it to the lab, and finally we got an orthotic. Okay, the transparent one, which hard one, which she is having in her mouth, is called as an orthotic. Okay. Now, some of you might wonder whether this is the same as a splint, which most of the dentists will be using it for past many years. And previously, in all the articles and everywhere we would have seen the splint is being used. Okay, so this is entirely different from the splint. Okay, there is a lots of difference between a splint and an orthotic. Material wise, it looks almost similar, and when you see with your naked eyes also almost it is similar, but the way we took a bite is almost different. Okay, for example, when you are considering your bite, when a patient is having a trismus and when a patient is having a TMJ disorder, when you are giving a splint, what you will do is you will ask the patient to open the mouth, and then you will keep a putty material and ask the patient to close the mouth, and then register the bite and give it as a putty. So give it as a splint. So by doing that, what you're doing is you're just increasing the vertical dimension. Okay, if the patient mouth, or if the patient is clenching in this level, you're increasing the vertical dimension to another 2 or 3 millimeter. Okay, so only this axis you're taking about. So this axis we call it as a pitch, as you can see in this diagram. So this movement we call it as a pitch. Okay, and this side movement we call it as yaw, and this tilting we call it as roll. Okay, so whenever you're giving a splinting, whenever you're taking an impression, giving a splinting, you're just taking care of your pitch, only this movement. Okay, whereas when we're doing a tensing and then taking a bite, what will happen is the jaw will come to a normal physiological position. That means if the jaw is initially tilted like this or turned like this, now after tensing, what will happen is it will eventually come back to this position temporarily. So after it comes back to the physiological position, we are taking a bite, and in that bite we are delivering an orthotic. So it makes a lots of difference. Okay, so in this position, when patient is wearing an orthotic, almost all the musculoskeletals, all the muscles which is related to the head and neck will be in a physiological rest position, and the orthotic will be holding that position as long as patient is wearing that in their oral cavity. Whereas in your splint, that may not happen in all the cases. That's why in splint we are having some amount of failures, whereas in orthotic we are not having a failures. So after wearing that appliance for around 6 months, every month we'll ask the patients to report to us, and when we check the patient, we'll do some occlusal adjustments in the patients. We'll take a bite force for the patient. We'll check the bite force. We'll do all sort of arrangements, mainly to make the muscles in a more balanced manner. Okay, so this is actually this patient reported to me yesterday. So luckily I could take a photograph again, and what I could measure is now her mouth opening is 37 millimeter. I hope you remember initially the mouth opening is just 10 millimeter, and now she has reached for 37 millimeter, which is within a normal limit. And this 37 millimeter is also not with any force or any extra energy she has to spend. Just like that, at ease, without any pain, without any restriction, any difficulty, she can open for 37 millimeter. Okay, and along with this, let's check what else has been resolved from this patient. She doesn't have any pain in the TMJ. She doesn't have any headache for this past 6 months. She doesn't have any ear pain or neck pain and tinnitus, and she is having a very good sleep whenever she is wearing this orthotic. So being a dentist or being a doctor in the dental field, we could solve the patients from sleep apnea. We could solve the patient from body posture. We could solve even the ear pain if it is related to the TMJ region. So what we understood on seeing this lots of TMJ cases is many patients are being roaming around for headache, to find a cure for headache. They will approach the ENT specialist first, or they will go and meet an ophthalmologist and have an eye checkup and wear a specs. Okay, so and finally, if they're very frustrated and if their pain is not relieved, they will go and meet a neurologist, but they will never end up with the dentist. Okay, so this is a scenario, if you notice, it's happening all around the country. Okay, so that is mainly because as a dentist, we are not giving assurance for the patient that we are also dealing with that. So dentists already fix their mind that patients already fix their mind that dentist is mainly to check for the teeth and nothing else. Actually, the TMJ is also our territory. The TMJ is also our area of interest. Nobody else is going to treat a TMJ. Okay, so from this, I wanted you to understand that kindly concentrate on the TMJ whenever you're dealing with any sort of facial pain. So in this case, actually what problem we have is now the patient is completely asymptomatic, but whenever she's trying to remove the orthotic for around 1 hour or 2 hours, again her pain is coming back. That is mainly because we didn't finish one work here. That is the occlusion. Initially, I said that she is having an orthopedic disbalance. Okay, so that imbalance we haven't sorted out. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to measure the vertical dimension, and for the same vertical dimension and for the same that pitch, raw and roll, we have to give a RPD or any other tooth replacement temporarily we have to give, and we have to follow the patient whether she is coping up with that artificial teeth, and if she is coping out with that, then eventually we have to make it as a fixed appliance. Okay, so once we are making this a fixed appliance, finally what you have to do is we have to check for the occlusal equilibrium with this apparatus. So when you're checking with that, you can see in the first picture that patient is having excessive force in the left side posterior region. That's why it has been marked with the red. Okay, so you have to find the exact spot where it is excess. You have to reduce it, and finally patient will be having an equal force all around her dentition. So this is how we finish all the TMJ case, by balancing your muscle, your joint, as well as the teeth. So only if you do like this, the TMJ can be completely resolved. Otherwise, patient will be repeatedly having the temporomandibular disorders. Okay. So yeah, you might ask me a question like when TMD patients are approaching you, what are the first things we can do about it? Okay, so what I request you to is first examine the patient's TMJ by holding it in the pre-auricular region and ask the patient to open the mouth. You find out how much they are able to open the mouth. You talk to the patient how it started, whether they have any history positively related to that. Then you write down everything. Then you take a preliminary radiographs, if possible OPG or CBCT. Then you advise the patient for analgesics if they haven't started any analgesics. And most common analgesics which I prescribe is piroxicam we can give, which has a deeper penetration in the joint. And if you find patient is having a muscle pain or trismus or inability in opening the mouth, then you can go for a muscle relaxants. Okay. In meantime, you can even ask the patients to slightly massage their masseter, because that is the only area which we can do massage. So slightly adjust that area so that patient will be temporarily relieved from symptoms. And even patient can go for hot water and cold fomentation. That means they can use a towel dipped in a hot water and squeeze it properly and keep it in the affected area for 5 or 10 minutes. and then they can take an ice pack and keep it in that area. Alternatively, they can do which increases their blood supply and reduces the muscle swelling and tenderness because of temporomandibular disorder. So these are the basic things which you can advise the patient, as well as ask the patient to be on the soft diet for some time. And the drugs, these are the common drugs which is being prescribed by the dentist if they are dealing with a temporomandibular disorder. And if the patient is having a moderate muscle trismus, then I'll go for Plexon MR or Myospas. If it is very severe, usually I'll prescribe Myoral 8. Okay, the third one, the blue colored one is the one which is my favorite. I'll prescribe for the patient, and it gives a better result. But one thing you should notice about these medications are you don't prescribe these drugs for more than 5 days or maximum 7 days. Okay, because these tablets has lots of side effects and it is an addictive tablet. Okay, if the patient is consuming for more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks, patient will get addicted to that and they will continue having this medication for many years. Okay, again, if you take a literature and see, you can find out the patients will be under longer medications, over the counter medications, or the patients who are having joint pain or muscle pain. If the patient is having a teeth pain, he is not going to take a medication for a longer period of time, not for many years. Okay, but the patient is having a joint pain or muscle pain, surely that patient will be having a medication for at least 4 or 5 years or more than that. So kindly avoid that and make sure the patient doesn't take the medication for more than 5 or 6 days. And if the symptom is a little acute and if the problem is not very severe, within this medications and within this preliminary massage and exercises, surely the patient symptoms will resolve. Okay, and if the problem is little more severe, even if you give medication for a longer period of time, it will not resolve. So if it has to resolve, it should be resolving within 1 week in these medications and basic treatment. If it is not resolving, kindly seek any expertise help. Okay, so now the important question is how to prevent TMD. This is the most important one which I want to convey to you. Two things can happen. The patient can prevent the TMD and the dentist can prevent the TMD. The patient can prevent the TMD and by a few advices which you can give, that is, always ask the patient to chew bilaterally, because if you notice, even as a dentist, you or me, sometimes we'll tend to chew on unilateral position. So always change that and try to ask the patient to chew bilaterally. Consume plenty of water, keep yourself hydrated even if it is a winter season. Maintain the body electrolytes, check your vitamin D and serum, or get exposed to the sun and maintain the vitamin D level. Maintain your body posture, or maintain your adequate sleep. Take rest adequately and sleep properly. And advise to have a dental checkup. If they are extracting 1/6 today, within 1 month or 2 months, they should replace that particular tooth. If they are not replacing, eventually they will end up in collapsed bite and eventually they will have a temporomandibular disorder. Now coming to the most important part, by the dentist. How can a dentist prevent this? Whenever you are doing a restoration, always just not focus on the teeth. Remember, you're dealing with TMD also. You're dealing with the temporomandibular joint also. Whatever changes you're doing on one particular tooth, by restoring that particular tooth, the TMJ is getting affected. Okay, so don't just, that's why in colleges and all, now I remember they used to scold us when we are doing a restoration flat. They will always ask us to reproduce the cusp pattern. That time I didn't understand the importance of that, but now if you think, each and every pattern of the cusp is very, very, very important. Okay, so always try to restore the tooth, don't just fill the tooth. Then check for high points whenever you are finishing it. Maintain the curve of splee if you are maintaining a full mouth rehabilitation. Maintain the vertical height, and while extraction, always hold the mandible. Don't give excessive force to the mandible so that you will not hurt the TMJ. And the most importantly is, take time to finish your orthodontic procedure, because in Kanyakumari district, I have noticed that as soon as the patient turns 15 or 16, it is always like mandatory to go for an orthodontic procedure. Okay, almost everybody is concerned about aesthetics, and it is good in one way. They are correcting it. They are correcting the orthodontic procedure. But the problem here is, patient always is in a hurry. They will say, within 6 months, I wanted to get it corrected. 3 months later, I am having a wedding, so I wanted to get it corrected. So they are forcing the dentist, and we are also getting forced. And what we are doing is, eventually, we are increasing the force which has been applied by the orthodontics, or we are removing the orthodontic clips before the treatment is completed. So because of that, not only the relapse of the teeth has happened, eventually the collapse of the entire bite will lead to temporomandibular disorder. Trust me, as far as to my concern, I would have seen lots of temporomandibular cases now, and in that 90% of the cases, or at least 80% of the cases, young individuals have a history of orthodontic procedure which has been stopped, or which has been carried out for a very longer period of time, or which has been given a very excessive force. Okay, so orthodontic procedure plays a very important role in temporomandibular disorders if you are not finishing it properly at time. Okay, and when you sense that patient is having some restricted mouth opening or pain whenever they're opening the mouth, always take some small intervals. If you're doing RCT, don't do it continuously for 2 hours or 3 hours. Just take a break after every half an hour. That is good for both the dentist as well as the patient. So this is what I wanted to highlight about our temporomandibular disorders, which our dentists are failing to seek that region. Okay, so whenever you're doing any restorations or anything in the teeth, just remember the TMJ also. That is one part, as well as don't forget about your musculoskeletal. And another different concept which I want to highlight you about is, if you check for past 10 to 15 years, if you check why dentistry has suddenly come to the limelight, and people have started from medical also, they started turning back and seeing dentists. That is mainly because, to my knowledge, it is mainly because of three reasons. One is it is because of the aesthetic or smile design. Okay, the second one is mainly because of your microscopic endodontics. Then the third one is because of CBCT. Okay, so these are the three important things which brought the dentistry a boom, and which made it come to a limelight. Okay, so CBCT is not only for the oral medicine and radiologists. Actually, it's a very good advantage for almost all the dentists as well as other medical profession also. So let's see a few cases how it really helps. Okay, as you can see, this radiograph, in a single glance, what you can see is there is an impacted premolar there. Okay, in the maxillary second quadrant. Okay, and you can see this area is looks very black, whereas the right side it looks white. Okay, so you may think that the tooth is present within the sinus, or it is displacing the sinus, or whether the right side is affected, or is there any lesion associated with the tooth. But we will not be very sure whether the lesion is present, if it is present, till where it extends and all. Okay, so just imagine you can take a picture like this. So this is the image which you can get with the CBCT. Okay, so in OPG you are very restricted with a two-dimensional images, whereas in CBCT the main advantage of CBCT is you can see the lesion from all three areas. Okay, so for example, the axial view, that means, what does axial view means? You are seeing the lesion from the top or from the bottom angle. Okay, so as you can see the axial view, you can see the lesion is involving the entire left side of the maxilla. It is involving your palatal region. It is destroying almost half of your palatal region, and tooth is pushed towards the facial wall. Okay, and the lesion is extending from the anterior most maxillary region till your pterygoid plates. So the entire jaw has been involved, whereas in OPG you couldn't understand the severity of the lesion. Okay, and if you can see the coronal view, that is from the front, this is the view. Okay, you can see the nasal cavity, you can see the maxillary sinus, and you can see the entire maxillary sinus appears white. That is mainly because the fluids are being filled in the lesion is being filled in the entire maxillary sinus. Okay, and the next view is from the side, and even the 3D reconstruction shows the extreme destruction because of the lesion. So this is the advantage of taking a CBCT in any pathology like this, which has not been relieved in your two-dimensional radiograph. And next one, again, a similar case. This is a patient with complaint of pain after extraction. After extraction, she said like it's been 1 week, but then also she is having pain in that region. So this patient had a problem after extraction. She was having a severe pain in that extracted area for past 1 week. Okay, and so that patient has been referred to us for an radiograph to analyze why the problem is being persisting even after extraction. So when we took a radiograph, we could see the socket is very much clear in that region. There is no fragments, root fragments, or there is no obvious fracture or any abnormalities can be seen there. Okay, but what we could see is the sinus is having one cyst-like structure. Okay, the white colored structure which is present in the sinus, it looks more like a mucus retention cyst, which commonly we are seeing in many individuals, many allergic individuals, that usually doesn't give much of a problem. So usually the pain will not be arising from that region. Okay, so what we did is we advised the patient to go for a CBCT, and this is what we could see in a CBCT. Now, when you're looking at a CBCT, what you can see is the socket is having a communication with the maxillary sinus, and the maxillary sinus is having a cyst, which most probably would have arisen from the periapical region. Okay, so this is actually a periapical cyst which has been present for a longer period of time, and eventually it eroded the floor of the maxillary sinus and now involving the entire maxillary sinus. Okay, and unknowingly, when we are extracting that particular tooth, what will happen is the lesion will remain there and it will keep on getting infected, and pain will not subside, but the lesion will enlarge in size. Okay, if you see the three-dimensional picture, you can see how much amount of bone loss has happened in that particular region, whereas in OPG you can't appreciate this amount of bone loss. If you see the axial view, the yellow color arrow, if you note down, you can see there is a complete loss of buccal cortical plate. So that area, there is no buccal cortical plate at all. Whereas if you're seeing OPG, or if you take an IOP for this region, 100% I'm sure you will not be able to appreciate all these findings. Okay, if you're failing to appreciate, the patient will be still having a pain and it will never be resolved. And this is another simple case. If you see very clearly, and all of a sudden you will not be able to appreciate anything. But if you notice very clearly in the maxillary anterior region, you can see some vague tooth-like structure. It is not very sure whether it could be a tooth also, but it is little blurred, but it is a tooth which is present in the maxillary anterior region. Now the question is whether the tooth is present in the palatal aspect or it is in the buccal aspect. So this is a common question for all the dentists, especially for the surgeon, before when they are trying to extract the tooth. Okay, so by seeing this OPG, we will not be able to tell you whether it is present on the palatal region, whether it is present on the buccal region, whether it is giving exerting force or displacing the teeth, whether it is having any cyst surrounding it, whether it is in the nasal cavity, sinus. No information can be relieved from the OPG. Whereas if you're getting an image like this is a 3D reconstructed image from a CBCT for the same patient, and you can see very clearly that the tooth is present on the palatal aspect. The coronal portion of the tooth is more towards the crown region of the adjacent tooth, whereas the root is more oblique position and it is more deeper. Okay, and we can see there is no cystic region which is surrounding this, and we can also see it is not pretty much displacing the tooth. So lots of information we are getting from this. And one more good news about the CBCT is, if you're explaining the patient with this image to the CBCT, with this image to the patient will be very well convinced. Okay, the patient will be cooperating with you, and patient will understand the scenario. Patient will be understanding the difficulty of a dentist in removing it, and so they will be ready to pay whatever amount you're asking for. And from the dentist point of view, you will be doing a very good job. If you have an image like this, your extraction will be 100% success, and it will be very, very less atraumatic. Okay. And this is most important one, that is a xylography. And so xylography is a very, very old technique, but when it is combined to CBCT, this is an excellent technique for most of the imaging modalities of salivary gland, where even MRI or CT cannot reveal the findings. Okay, so this patient had a very atypical problem. So this patient came with the problem of twitching sensation, not pain, not any itching or something, some twitching sensation in the floor of the mouth. So when we examined, we couldn't find much of a clinical findings, but when we palpate, we could find out that on the left side of the floor of the mouth, she is having some amount of tenderness adjacent to the premolar. Okay, but the tooth looks normal. We don't appreciate any positive findings there. We took an OPG and we couldn't appreciate anything. So what we thought is, we advised the patient for a xylography. Then we injected the contrast agent. Then we took a CBCT xylography. And what you could see here is, in the last picture, you could see I have circled with the red color. You can see two white lines which is running across. Okay, usually it should be only one white line. Okay, that is the duct. That is the Wharton's duct. That means the duct of the submandibular gland. So that duct actually is divided into two. So this is an anatomical variant. Okay, so because of this variant, the patient has a higher tendency to get obstructed in that particular region. So this patient is a little apprehensive patient. So because of the twitching sensation, she started developing anxiety. So because of that, she stopped drinking water also. She basically doesn't have a habit of drinking lots of water. So along with the lack of water, along with the anatomical variation, what happened is she started collecting a mucus plug in that region. Okay, so that is the problem which causes irritation or infection in that particular region. So what we advised is, after seeing this CBCT xylography, we just advised her to have lots of water daily. So we asked her to increase the water level to around 3 or 4 liters. Okay, so after 2 or 3 weeks, eventually her entire symptom is subsided. She doesn't have any twitching sensation, which she had for a longer period of time. That means more than 2 or 3 years she's been suffering from that sensation, and she was very anxious because of that. So a simple CBCT radiograph can reveal you a finding, can you reveal your diagnosis, with which, without even a major treatment, we can solve the patient's issues. So here we didn't give any medication, or here we didn't do any major surgery or anything. Just we advised us for a water consumption to increase the amount of water which she always used to take, and we explained the patient what is the scenario. So by explaining the patient mind calms down, and she understood that this is not very cancerous thing or any other pathology. So she started taking plenty of water, and now the problem is solved. And another one is this patient is being referred to us as a TMJ patient. So this is a very interesting case. So the doctor referred to us saying that we have a TMJ case and we wanted your opinion. So when I saw that patient, even I felt it is a TMJ case, because patient problem is restricted mouth opening and pain while chewing. So it is, I thought it is a very straightforward, I thought it is a very straightforward TMJ case. Can you unmute? Can you mute yourself? Sorry. Okay, so I thought it is a TMJ case, and I started examining in the TMJ point of view. So when we are doing that, what we saw is there is a tenderness in these tooth. Okay, there is a tenderness in 4.6 and 4.7. Then we took an OPG and we saw there is a periapical lesion all that region. So I thought it could be because of periapical infection also. So I had a small doubt whether it is completely TMD or is there anything else. Okay. So what I did is we took a CBCT for the patients. Okay. When we are taking CBCT, we again asked for the patient history. What patient told us for 7 months she was having pain in this particular region. Okay. And she gave a history of domestic violence by her husband. Her husband hit her on the right side of the face. Okay. From then she started developing pain, and now it became a trismus, and she has having a loss of sensation in this region also. Okay. So when we took the CBCT, we understood this is not only a TMJ case, this is something else. Okay. If you see the axial slice, you can see the left side, we can see the bone marrow very clearly. The corticated outline is very clear. But on the right side, if you see, it appears like a chalk piece. That means it appears completely white. That indicates that patient is having a chronic sclerosing osteomyelitis. The bone which is present on that side is completely dead. So when we go through the entire CBCT image, then we found out there is a fracture here, which is related to the 6. Okay. So what would have happened is when the patient got hit by her husband, that area would have got fractured, and that fracture is not treated. So because of that, it got infected and eventually turned into a chronic sclerosing osteomyelitis. So these findings will not be able to appreciate in your OPG or any other radiograph unless until you take a 3-dimensional view. Okay. So, and last one, of course, I have to say, whenever you're taking CBCT comes to dentistry mainly because of implant planning. Okay. So when now I think most of us or many doctors are being into this implant, and I don't have to explain much because you know about that. When you're doing implant, the basic things which you require is the thickness of the mandible, the exact thickness of the mandible, the architecture of the mandible, and exactly where the nerve is present, the nerve tracing. So these are the common things which you need for putting an implant. And you will be wanted to know how much amount of thickness of implant you have to select, how much amount of bone is being present, whether you want to do a bone graft and all those things. So everything can be done easy whenever you're taking a CBCT for that. Okay. So even this nerve tracing, as you can see, the pink colored one, this can be used for your impaction also whenever you're taking a 3/8 or 4/8 impacted teeth. So coming towards almost the end of the presentation, I just wanted to ask every one of you, within your mind, you can answer this. If someone is asking you whether you are a doctor or a dentist, which one will you say? I think half of you will say I'm a doctor, and half of you will say I'm a dentist. And sometimes some people will think like dentist is also a doctor. Yes, that is true. Dentist is also a doctor, but we will be confused. Okay. For example, when you are filling any forms, if you have a dentist column and below that, if you have a doctor column, we'll be little confused to tick which one we should select. Okay. I'm also a very proud dentist, but here the question is not that. Okay. Have you ever wondered, this question would have been asked for an ophthalmologist. Okay. Whether ophthalmologist will be asked whether you are an ophthalmologist or a doctor. So those questions will not be asked for an ophthalmologist or neurologist or any other specialist. But when it comes to dentist, obviously this question will be arise, and sometimes we ourselves will are getting confused. So my answer for this question is we are both doctor as well as a dentist. Okay, we are doctor by profession and dentist is our specialty. Okay, unlike our MBBS, MBBS is a basic one, and after that they are doing a specialty as ophthalmologist or dermatologist or any other things, cardiologist, anything. But for us, dentist itself is a specialty because we are doing lots of works which nobody, even the medical field, many of them would have not even imagined about. Okay, so but we are sticking on to the dentist part more, and we are slightly forgetting about the doctor. We are concentrating more on the tooth. That is good in one point of view, but still we shouldn't leave the doctor criteria from us. Okay, so for that, what you have to do is you have to consider all the structures into consideration. Actually, dentist is a head and neck specialist. Okay, they are not only tooth specialists. So don't stick on to the tooth alone. And whenever you are doing a tooth, for example, always you can start like this. If you are doing a extraction in the 1-6 or 2-6 region or in the premolar, upper premolar, always keep mind when you are extracting it, you are always dealing with the maxillary sinus also. If you remove the tooth forcefully, or if it is an infected tooth, always you should keep in mind that there is a communication to the maxillary sinus also. So if you have that thought itself, automatically you will take care of maxillary sinus and you will not forget maxillary sinus. When a patient is having a swelling in the salivary gland region, when the patient is having xerostomia, always think it could be salivary gland. Do the salivary gland examination. Whenever patient is sitting in a very abnormal posture, or whenever patient is having muscle in the backache or neck pain, or when patient is telling she has a severe headache for past many months, and because of that her airway is not proper, her breathing is not proper, always try to attend that patient and try to sort out whether it could be something related to our specialty. So when you take care of these 4 things, which we would have been read in BDS itself, not necessarily you should be an oral medicine radiologist. As a BDS guy, as a dentist, basically you can treat TMJ, airway, posture, maxillary sinus, and salivary gland. You can prevent it, and you can find out it and do the referral at a particular point of time. And you can even treat it in a basic manner. So always remember to expand your horizon and don't stick it to only the tooth, and try to involve all the other areas in your practice and flourish in your practice. So I hope I gave some idea about what you wanted from my presentations. And thank you for your patient listening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity for the presentation. I thank IDA Marthanda member, Honorable President and Secretary Dr. Bianso, and President Sadish sir, and CD convener Melvin, and everybody. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Nice presentation.
Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you, doctor. It was really a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
I request Dr.
Superb, Redwin. Very nice presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You
have done a very good job, actually. You have enlightened some area where people are little hesitant to reach. Anyway, very wonderful presentation.
Redwin, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Melvin.
Nice presentation, sir.
Thank you.
அப்புறம் ஒரே ஒரு क्वेश्चन இருக்கு. chair side TMD evaluation எப்படி பண்ணுவீங்கன்னு கேட்டிருக்காங்க.
Okay, chair side, basically we can always start with the history. Okay, always start from where the patient problem would have started, whether they have a trauma history, whether they have any fall, or whether they have any hit in that particular region. So history is very important, and always ask which pain started first, whether the headache, neck pain, or backache, or which side started first, or whether they are chewing unilaterally. So all this history has to be done, and you have to write it down separately. And the clinical examination, first you make the patient sit very comfortably and keep your hands in the pre-auricular region. Okay, so that is where we have our TMJ. The pre-auricular region, just try to give little pressure and see whether patient is having tenderness. So you are palpating the lateral pole of the temporomandibular joint, and if the patient is having severe TMD issues, most of the patient will have pain when you are palpating like that. Okay, then by palpating itself, ask the patient to open the mouth. Okay, so then you will be able to understand whether both the joints are traveling at the same time, or one is traveling ahead of the other one. So these are the few things with which you can find out whether patient might have a TMJ issues. And always observe how much interincisal opening, that means your tip of the upper incisor and lower incisor, how much interincisor opening is there, whether opening is straight, something like this, or whether it is deflecting towards one side, or whether it is deviating like this. Whenever they are opening and closing, it might deviate like that. So these are the things basically you have to note it down. And if possible, if you are familiar with, you have to check for the muscles of mastication. Mainly ask the patient to clench and palpate the mesenteric area, and you can find some trigger point will be present, or this is the temporal region where you can palpate and see for the temporalis muscles, or you can check for your sternocleidomastoid, and intraorally also you can check for your lateral pterygoid and medial pterygoid. So when you're examining these things itself, to 70 to 80%, you can assure that.
Yeah, no other questions, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Melvin.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much.
joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Edwin.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Edwin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Papa.
ரெட்வின் ஜி எப்போதும் போலே கலக்கிட்டீங்க.
தேங்க்யூ சம்பு சார். மழை வரல சார்.
மழை இங்க வந்துருச்சு. பரவாயில்ல.
ஓகே சார். தேங்க்யூ so much சார்.
Bye Redvin.
Bye kids.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.